While it's certainly important to know how to obtain those values for the median, the mean, the standard deviation, and the 5-number summary, it's also very important that we understand some of the properties about these values, and also how to know when to report the mean and the standard deviation versus the 5-number summary. So properties about the standard deviation is that it measures the variability about the mean of that distribution. You're going to use the standard deviation anytime that you're using the mean to describe the center. So the mean and the standard deviation go together as a pair. The only time your standard deviation is 0 is when there's absolutely no variability. Every single observation is exactly the same number. Now, otherwise, the standard deviation will be greater than 0. You'll never have a negative standard deviation. It always will be a value, either 0 if there's no variation, or some number greater than 0. As you have larger variations from the mean, your standard deviation is going to get larger. Now, another thing to recognize is that the mean is going to be strongly influenced by a few extreme observations. Since you have to add every value in the observation in order to calculate the mean, then every value is going to contribute to that number. And so if you have a really large or a really small number, that's going to impact your calculation for the mean. Now the median, because it really is just that center number and it doesn't matter what the values are to the left and to the right, the median is not influenced by extreme observations. So if your distribution is symmetrical, then the mean and the median are going to be approximately the same values. But when your data distribution is skewed to the right, the mean is going to follow that tail, and so the mean is going to be greater than the median. And when the distribution is skewed left, the mean is going to be less than the median. So when you're trying to determine which numerical description that you need to provide as a summary, you need to decide what type of distribution you have. Since the mean and standard deviation are strongly affected by outliers or the long tail of a skewed distribution, you should only use the mean and the standard deviation for symmetric distributions. The median and the quartiles are not so affected by outliers and skewed distributions, so the 5-number summary is a better option when you have a skewed distribution or outliers. Only use the mean x bar and the standard deviation s when you have a reasonably symmetric distribution that's free of outliers. So an important thing to note here is that these numerical summaries will not disclose if you have multiple peaks or gaps in your data, and you need to know if your distribution is symmetric or not. So you should always start with a graph of your data before you do anything else in statistics.